The PATrain, also known as the Mon Valley Commuter Rail, is a defunct commuter rail service formerly operated by the Port Authority of Allegheny County in the Monongahela Valley in the U.S. state of Pennsylvania. Service began in 1975 when the Port Authority assumed control of the Pittsburgh, McKeesport, Versailles commuter trains operated by the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, B&O, part of the Chessie System. The Port Authority discontinued the service in 1989. History: private operation. In the early 1970s, the Port Authority, PAT, which since 1964 had controlled all bus and streetcar service in Allegheny County, had negotiated with the B&O and Pittsburgh and Lake Erie Railroad, P&LE, the last two private sector commuter operators in the region, about the possibility of expanded rail service. At the time, the B&O operated 6 weekday round trips from Pittsburgh to Versailles, while the P&LE operated a single weekday round trip from Pittsburgh to Beaver Falls. The Pennsylvania Railroad had ended service on its 6 commuter routes in 1964, citing lack of patronage. Neither the B&O nor the P&LE showed much interest in expanded service, citing existing operating losses and declining patronage. PAT then proposed that it take ownership of the B&O's service, with the B&O operating it under contract. The B&O trains made the run from McKeesport to Pittsburgh in 25 minutes, twice as fast as comparable bus service. Among the strongest supporters in the local government were then Mayor Peter F. Flaherty and County Commissioner William Hunt. Another champion was Harold Geisenheimer, PAT's Director of Transit Operations. In 1974, PAT estimated capital costs for a 3-year trial at $1.7 million, plus $1.9 million in operating costs. The capital costs would be split between the federal government, the state of Pennsylvania, and the county, and would include the purchase of 2 locomotives and 9 coaches. PAT would increase the existing 2-car trains to 4-car trains, while also increasing frequency of service. The per-passenger subsidy was estimated at 95 cents, compared to between 6 and 13 cents for the typical bus passenger. Daily ridership then stood at 300. PAT's best-case projection was 3,000. A proposal by Hunt to extend service further to Elizabeth was unsuccessful. The route was owned by the P&LE, which requested $500,000 to rehabilitate the line. This the state would not provide, as the line would still mostly carry P&LE freight traffic and not commuters. The PAT takes over. On February 1, 1975, PAT took over the service from the B&O. By mid-1977, daily ridership had grown to 1,400, a significant increase over the B&O days. On the other hand, the per-passenger subsidy stood at $2.77, nearly 3 times the 1974 projection, while the bus subsidy was 8 cents per passenger. Defenders pointed out that the figure included capital costs, including a payment of $10,000 per month to the B&O for equipment leasing, which inflated costs and made the comparison inexact. In addition, the PATrain made the trip from Versailles to Pittsburgh in 23 minutes, while it took over an hour by bus. In 1978, PAT renewed its agreement with the B&O, and was finally able to secure the capital funding for the new equipment plus a new intermodal transportation center in McKeesport. The McKeesport Transportation Center opened on December 21, 1981. In addition to buses and the PATrain, the center saw service from Amtrak's Chicago, Washington Capital Limited. Additional capital improvements included the construction of new park and ride lots at Braddock, and Versailles, and the addition of a new stop at Portview. In mid-1979, service stood at 8 round trips Monday to Friday and 5 round trips on Saturday. There was no service on Sundays. 3 round trips terminated at McKeesport, with the remainder continuing to Versailles. In a nod to railroad tradition, the Port Authority assigned names to the trains. PATrain, Early Bird, Pittsburgh, Golden Triangle, Shopper, Midday, Mon Valley, McKeesport, and Allegheny. Decline and discontinuance. Daily ridership peaked in 1981 at 1,800 during the reconstruction of Parkway East, which had spawned the short-lived PennDOT-operated Parkway Limited. By 1983, daily ridership had dropped below 1,300, spread over 8 daily round trips. Operating expenses for FY 1982-1983 were $1.8 million, of which only $500,000 was recovered. PAT's operations director cited multiple factors, including fare increases, van pools, and a generally poor economic situation in the Monongahela Valley. PAT discontinued service after April 28, 1989. Citing declining ridership and increasing operating losses, PAT instituted express bus service to cover the route. Equipment. Trains operated in push-pull mode. A typical consist in the 1980s was 3/4 coaches, the last of which was fitted for carb control. Motive power was provided by a pair of refurbished EMDF-7A diesel-electric locomotives. The trains were painted in a brown and orange scheme. PAT owned 10X Chesapeake and Ohio Railway C&O coaches, all originally built by Pullman Standard. When service ended in 1989, the equipment was sold to the Connecticut Department of Transportation to bootstrap the new Shoreline East service. At times Bud Rail diesel cars were used instead. Route. Inbound PATrains originated at Versailles, first and Wampler. They then used P&LE Liberty Borough Bridge to cross the Allegheny River to reach Portview Liberty. Along River Road, departing Portview, trains turned east and crossed the Allegheny a second time via the P&LE McKeesport Bridge to reach McKeesport, Lyle Boulevard and Sinclair. Trains then followed the north bank of the Monongahela River, heading north-northwest toward Braddock, 6th and Washington. Finally, trains continued running west along the river to reach the B&O's Grant Street station in downtown Pittsburgh. Grant Street was a commuter-only station. All B&O's intercity traffic used the P&Le's station on the opposite side of the river, now Station Square. Pittsburgh suburban rail timetables.